Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Mr. Lugo. Um, Struggling a little bit. Let's jump right into it. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be looking at how to add integers using models. So again, today we are adding, that is all we're doing today. And I want you to remember that because with some of these problems that we're going to be looking at, it's going to almost look like we're subtracting, but we're actually adding. We're actually adding, and we're adding integers. And if you remember what an integer is simply a number without a decimal value. For example, like the number 7, as well as the number -7, the number 38, and the number -38, the number 0, the number 72. All of these numbers do have decimals, but they don't have decimal value. They're always followed by zeros after the decimal. There's nothing there that has any value. So again, we're going to be looking at adding numbers, both positive and negative, that do not have a decimal value. Okay, again, that is, I encourage you to pause this video if you haven't done this already and copy down the title, SB 8-1, Adding Integers Using Models. We're going to be on page 96. This is our 17th lesson, and these are the numbers that you are accountable for. Let's begin with an example. The example is 3 plus -7. 3 plus -7. Now, notice that I put the -7 in parentheses. That is because notice how weird it looks when I don't do that. 3 plus -7. This right here can be problematic. It almost looks like it says plus -7, and it's like, well, which one is it? Is it plus or is it minus? Ladies and gentlemen, when we're adding and the second number is a negative number, we typically put it inside parentheses just so that we don't get confused like that. We're adding 3 and -7. Technically, I could have also written it like this, -7 plus 3, because when we're adding, the order doesn't matter. 1 plus 2 is the same thing as 2 plus 1. So in this case, 3 plus -7 is the same thing as -7 plus 3. However, I did want you to see how we write this. I did want you to see the notation whenever we have whenever we're adding and the second number is a negative number. So again, we have 3 plus -7. And since we're using models today, ladies and gentlemen, I mean, we're going to be using visual representations to add these things together. We're going to be using counters, and we're going to be using the number line. Those are the two different models that we are going to be using. Right now, however, I want us to focus on the counters. So let's express 3, positive 3, as counters. So here we have 1 positive counter, 2 positive counters, and 3 positive counters. Each of these counters represents the number 1, positive 1 to be exact. So positive 1 plus positive 1 plus positive 1. So we have 1, 2, 3 positive counters. That's positive 3 plus 1 negative counter, another negative counter, another negative counter, yet another one, another one. So each of these pink counters represents a -1. So -1, -1, -1, -1, -1, -1. So that makes 7 -1 counters, or -7. So we have positive 3 plus -7. As you copy these down, you don't have to do them in color, but please, when you do the circle, write down the symbol that it pertains to in the middle. So the positive ones have a positive sign in the middle. The negative ones have a negative sign in the middle. All right. Having done that, ladies and gentlemen, and before we go on, I want us to focus down here where it says 0 pair. 0 pair. 0 as in the number 0, and pair as in pairing two things together. Ladies and gentlemen, we get a 0 pair whenever we combine, whenever we add a positive counter, or a number 1, a positive 1, with a negative counter, or a negative 1. Whenever I combine these two, they will always yield 0. They will cancel each other out. It's the same as if, let's just pretend that I represent a number line. It's here in the middle. This represents 0. To the right, we have positive numbers, and to the left, we have negative numbers. So if I started at positive 1, so I move 1 over, But then I did, okay, now I'm going to do -1. I'm going to move 1 to the left. Where do I end up again? 0. Again, if I start at 0 and I go -1, but then I move +1, I am back at 0. It's like a game of tug of war. Okay, one's pulling to the 1, one's pulling to -1, and because they're both pulling the same strength or the same magnitude in different directions, they're going to balance each other out. They're going to stay at 0. It's like a scale. You have 1, -1, they stay at 0. So that is a 0 pair. So what I'm going to do, ladies and gentlemen, is that I'm going to pair up here. I'm going to pair up each positive counter with a negative counter until there are no more pairs to be made. So here I have a positive one, a negative one, so they cancel out. A positive and a negative, they're going to cancel out. A positive and a negative, they're going to cancel out. Now there's no other opposite pairs to cancel, so I'm going to count the remaining counters. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 negative counters left over. Therefore, my answer is -4. In other words, +3 plus -7 is -4. Interesting. Again, remember, we are adding. We are adding. 3 plus -7 is -4. Another model or another visual representation that I can use to observe how and why this is true is the number line. By now, you should be familiar with the number line. So I want you to copy down this number line. Feel free to pause it to make it as neat as you want. So it's going to be one horizontal line, one vertical line, and the vertical line in the middle is going to represent 0. To the right, I'm going to go +1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And to the left, I'm going to go -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6, -7, I guess. All right, so we understand that to the right, numbers grow and get more positive, and to the left, numbers decrease and get more negative. All right, so we're going to begin at +3, right? That is my number. I'm adding 3, so I have to begin at +3. So I'm going to mark +3 here on the number line. +3 has been marked here on the number line. And to +3, I'm going to add -7. Now, if I was adding +7, +7 would want to go to the right. And I would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I would actually end up at +10. We get that 7 or 3 plus +7. +3 plus +7 is going to give us +10. 3 plus 7 is 10. I get that. However, that is not what is happening here. Rather, I'm starting at +3 and I am going to add negative 7. So I'm going to add -1. I'm going to add -2, -3, -4, -5, -6, -7. Because I'm adding negative, I am adding in the negative direction. I'm added -7, and I ended up being at -4. So again, I started at +3 and I added negatively 7. So that left me at -4. The answer is -4. Awesome. Let's try another example. Here we have -5. So -5 plus +4. I could have also written this as 4 plus parentheses -5, just so you see it's the same thing. It's the same thing. All right, let's draw our counters. We have -5, so 5 negative counters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 negative counters, plus 4 positive counters. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now let's pair up. Let's do our 0 pairs for every negative. If there's a positive counter, I'm going to cancel them out. Negative and positive, cancel those out. Negative, positive, canceled. Negative and positive, canceled. Negative and positive, canceled. What do I have left over? I have 1 negative counter left over, so my answer would be -1. -5 plus 4 or 4 plus -5 would be -1. Let's observe how this is also depicted using a number line. So let me draw my number line. Oh, that's a beautiful line. Let me go 5 to the positive side, 3, 4, 5, 5 to the negative side, -1, -2, -3, -4, -5. And this time my first number is -5. So I'm going to begin at -5. To -5, I'm going to add 4, which that is in the positive direction. So I'm going to add 1, I'm going to add 2, I'm going to add 3, I'm going to add 4, and I'm not quite at 0 yet, but that was adding 4. And so my answer is -1. Notice how it's still negative, but only just. I almost made it back to 0. If I was adding 5, if I was adding +5 to -5, that would have given me all the way to 0, which makes sense because those are opposites. -5 plus 5 is 0. We go back to 0. That would have been a perfect 0 pair. If I would have added 6, I would have taken them to 1. If I would have added 7, it would have taken me to 2, etc., etc. So as you can see, in both models, I ended up with the exact same answer, which is -1. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that this was helpful. I hope that as you can see, it can get a bit confusing, but it's not difficult. And I want you to remember that, because this is the beginning. Adding and subtracting integers, for that matter, is some of the things that students in middle school struggle with a lot, even students in high school. But again, it's not because it's hard, but it's just because it's confusing. But if you understand this and you remember this, you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. So, ladies and gentlemen, again, I hope you found this helpful. Please do the assignment if you haven't done so already. And with that in mind, I will see you next time.